Guys, there are spoilers for this film and this review. So if you don't want to end up on ice, watch film and come back. You have been warned.
Hey guys, welcome back to another week of Ticket Tuesday. I'm your host, Ronan TMHD. So yeah, this is going to be a great time.
Hey guys, and welcome back to an episode of Ticket Tuesday. I'm your host, Ronan TMHD, and this week we watched The Furious, directed by Kenji Tanigaki and starring Miao. It is a new martial arts kung fu film, and this movie kicked so much ass it made me want to kick someone else's ass. That's how much it kicked ass. But before I go on a whole tangent, I love this film. I'll tell you why and more. Back to house. Guys, and welcome back to another episode of Ticket Tuesday. I'm your host, Ronan Time HD, and this week we watched The Furious, a new martial arts kung fu film directed by Kenji Tanigaki. Starring Miao, Joe Taslim, Brian Lee, Joey Iwanaga, and Yayan Ruhian. I'm very sorry. I very much butchered all of those names. I am very sure. I apologize. Either way, I'm just gonna jump straight into this. This movie was so fucking good. I absolutely loved this movie, and I think, like, some of my, I don't know, it just screams martial arts. You know, it's got that martial arts, like, flair to it, and it just proves to me why, it just kind of reminds me why I love action movies, right? Like, I think, for all the, like, dime a dozen, like, generic action movies that are out there, I think this movie is fucking a gem. I mean, this is a gem amongst them. I think that it's just like, I think the thing about it is the action is just so insane, but it's like not too insane that it like takes away from the movie. You know, it just enhances the movie. Like, there are so many awesome action set pieces in this movie, so many awesome action sequences in this movie that, like, it just gave me that old school kung fu vibe to it. You know what I mean? But still being like a modern martial arts movie with the amount of shit that they're able to do in this movie. Like, so there's a scene where, like, it's a big action scene, and near the end of it, Brian Lee, he rips out this steel pipe from the ground, and there's like a bit of concrete at the end of it, so it's like kind of like a makeshift hammer, like battle hammer, and he just like fucking spins around and tries to whack the main character in the head with it, and it like shatters, and then he just has like a steel pipe that he starts trying to kill him with. It looks, and that's the thing, it should be ridiculous, but it's not. Like, it's like, holy shit, that's so fucking cool. You know, there are just so many, like, parts of this movie where I'm like, holy shit, that was so fucking cool. And, like, I think in maybe not any other movie, but I think, like, with some other movies, I think it would seem a little too goofy to the point where it would take you out of the story or would take you out of the fight. But with this, I think it's, like, executed really well to the point where it's just like, yeah, that makes sense. And that was rad, right? You know, there's another thing that I really like that the main protagonist does, where like sometimes when he's fighting someone or like he's outnumbered, he'll start like rolling on the ground and like tripping people and like hitting them while he's rolling on the ground, right? And it doesn't sound that cool, but it is, right? I don't know, I can't really describe it that well, but it looks really cool. And there's just like points where like most of the fights, the main characters are outnumbered, right? They're like 2 against like 20 guys, right? And one thing I'd like is about like when they're fighting the giant groups of people, it's not like one goes and then the other one goes, and then it's not like they're lining up to get their asses kicked. They're actually like trying to gang up on them, right, and use the numbers game. But then our main characters, like with the action, they find ways to not get smothered by the amount of people swarming them, right? And they find ways to like slip out of it, or able, like, since the goons aren't very smart and they're not that crafty, they're just kind of blindly throwing themselves at them, like using their numbers, and that's kind of all they're using. Like they'll find weapons and they'll just like whack him in the head with a hammer a bunch of times, or they'll like start climbing on top of them and like wrapping their legs around their heads and like flipping around them and doing all this crazy shit, or like going between their legs, you know what I mean, or like using them to like run into each other, right? It's just, there's so many unique not one fight in this movie is similar in any way, and that's good. Every set piece is unique. Every set piece is different. Everything that happens in these fights is different, and it's fresh, and it's just like, with every fight, you're like, okay, how can this get any better? There's no way, and then it does. You know, it's just like, the ending fight, I think, was probably my favorite fight in the movie, but I'll get to that later. I want to talk about the other great fights in this movie. I think on one of the fights I really liked was the freezer fight, where our 2 main characters had tracked down, because the main character, he's trying to rescue his kidnapped daughter from human traffickers, right? And the secondary protagonist is trying to find his wife, who had gone missing while she was investigating this human trafficking case. So he like suspected them of doing something, or like kidnapping her or something. So he went to go find her, right? So they had like tracked down where the operation had been going on, and they went in, and then they just kicked everybody's ass, right? They dispatched of the goons pretty quickly, but then the head honcho of this like compound essentially had a shotgun, and he was shooting at them with a gun, and it's like, you know, it's common sense. Like, it's somebody in a martial arts movie, they just bring out a gun, right? He was like too old and like too out of shape to, I mean, not the actor, I meant the character, right? I'm not trying to insult him here, but like, it makes sense because now he's just shooting at him. But while he's shooting at them, there's also this Brian Lee, this big ass giant bald dude that's like running through them like the Rhino, right? Just fucking tossing them around and throwing them through shit and charging through walls, right? And like using a giant sledgehammer and swinging it at them as fucking hard as he can. And as I said, all the while they're trying to avoid the attacks of the big ass giant Brian Lee, they're also getting shot at by a guy with a shotgun, right? And they managed to balance it out really well, because then eventually the guy with the shotgun gets knocked out of the fight, but that really pisses off Brian Lee, who then just gets more angry as they start to like fight back, and then he just starts swinging with more ferocity with the sledgehammer, and they start using the dead frozen people as weapons. They like cut off the head of a guy who had gotten killed earlier for being an idiot, right, and kind of fucking up their operation. So they ice him, literally. So then they cut his head off and like punch it at him to use his frozen head as a weapon, like the block that his head's in. And that's awesome. And then the whole fight kind of revolves around them trying to wrestle the sledgehammer away from him, right? Because he's more dangerous with a weapon. So then he's too big and they have to both use it. But then the main guy, Miao, he thinks that they killed his daughter because he finds her shirt all bloodied in a basement. So then he like goes into super mode. He just fucking wails on Brian Lee, kicks the actual shit out of him. Like he swings at Brian Lee's head so hard with the sledgehammer that the head of it snaps off. And then he kind of like stabs him with the wooden stick, right? And at first I'm like, oh, well, he's out, right? He's out of the movie. He got. right? But then what I love is he comes back later in the movie. But I want to talk about one more fight first before I get to the final fight. And that's the apartment fight. And I think that fight, I think, is the best example of, like the numbers game and like them fighting swarms of dudes and it like being so well done, because they are outnumbered and the guys who are trying to get them have weapons, right? So they have like machetes and knives and like bats and a bunch of like weapons, and they don't have anything, right? So they're using like this wooden pallet, because like they saved the kids who were being human trafficked, and they were like upstairs trying to escape in their own way, and they were like basically using this wooden pallet to like block the bad guys from getting up there. They weren't even really fighting the bad guys all that much. They were just kind of being like a shield to make sure they don't get up there, right? And one thing I love is how much of a struggle it was. Like, every time it cuts to them, there's always, like, some bad guys trying to go around them and go up the stairs. But then they grab a hammer and, like, wail on that bad guy. And then he gets, like, they, like, defeat that bad guy. But there's so many of them, right? They can't really do that on all of them, right? And eventually, there's like a crooked captain that works at the police force that is like a lackey for the guy who's like pulling all the strings in this human trafficking ring, who works for like a crime family, right? Shall we say? And he's kind of on his payroll, so he obviously kind of turns a blind eye to everything they're doing. But then the cops are like, "Fuck that shit. We're gonna help these kids," right? It's like, screw your orders. So then they help them, and then at the very last second, when it looks like the bad guys are gonna overpower our two protagonists, the cops come in, and they save the day, and the kids are saved, right? And then they go to the police station, they're like, "Oh, well, even though you did save these kids, you did murder a lot of people," right? So we're gonna have to, like, put you in this little prison cell for a little bit until we post your bail, right? But then, you think it's over. But then, as I mentioned earlier, the, like, crime family guy who was, like, pulling the strings, his father-in-law is, like, the leader of this crime family. He's the head honcho, right? And they were already kind of, like, being shifty about him. They didn't really like him because they thought he wasn't making enough money, and they thought he was just kind of a fuck-up, right? So when this entire operation just goes up in flames, right, and they say that, oh, guns or, like, any kind of illegal good would be fine, like drugs, but children, you disgust me. Like, I'm not sure if he was actually mad about that or if he was just like saying that to say it, because I mean, he is like a crime boss. I don't really know if he would care that much about human trafficking. Either way, this fills him with rage, and he kills everyone in the room. The police captain is in there. He doesn't care that he's a police officer. He kills them anyway. And in his fit of rage, like, the guards storm into the room to try to stop him or to, like, try to put an end to him. He kills them. In a fit of rage during all this, he accidentally killed his wife as well. And even though it's all his fault, mind you, he didn't need to murder everyone in that room, right? He didn't need to do that. He's a bit of a psycho, actually. He has to have someone to blame, right? It's not his fault, of course not. So then he goes for the two protagonists, and he brings Yayan. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. He brings him along because he's like his like main lackey, right? Like his main goon that like does a lot of his dirty work for him, right? He brings him to the police station, and they just start fucking cleaning house. Yayan, he goes in and just starts immediately fucking shooting people with his bow. Doesn't say a word, just walks in and just starts immediately shooting all the police officers with his bow. And then it like builds and escalates as he's like basically fucking just slaughtering every cop in this department. He's just killing all of them, right? So, but all they're trying to do is get to our two protagonists to kill them because they blame them or he blames the main head honcho, blames them for the murder of his wife, which was really his fault. But either way, they get there and they had actually escaped from the cell they were in. They had gotten the keys. And then the ending sequence begins. It is a 2v2. It's a tag team fight, right? It's 2 guys v 2 guys. And it's great. So, the mob guy and his lackey get in there to kill our 2 main protagonists. But they thought it was going to be easy pickings because they were in the jail cell, but they had gotten out. And then eventually they meet up, the 4 meet up, and they start fighting. They like section off at first. It's like 1v1 and 1v1 both happening at the same time. But then they kind of converge and it's like a 2v2. And they're like switching back and forth between like who they're fighting. And it's really fluid and really cool. Like sometimes they'll flip over the back one and they'll fight the other one. And then they'll flip over and like fight the other one. They'll switch and switch. But then out of nowhere, because they established earlier before this fight that Brian Lee had survived and that he was coming back for revenge. Right? Because they killed his father, right? The band with the cowboy hat, that was like another lackey that was running it. So he comes back, and out of nowhere, he's just coming in, and he runs, and he charges with like a huge like headbutt, shoulder tackle, or whatever it is. And then at first, it kind of makes you think that he's with the mob guy and his lackey. But no, he just starts attacking them. So it's a 2v2v1, right? He's just there on his own time, right? He's just going to kick the shit out of anybody that gets in his way, right? And he adds so much to this fight. Because all the other guys are, like, pretty nimble, right? They're smaller. But he adds, like, the kind of, like, powerhouse, right? He's that big, like, mountain that they need to climb, right? And that's what I love about it, is he just kind of, like, tosses them around like it's nothing. He's really durable, and I love how, like, at points he'll be fighting somebody or, like, kind of sorta helping one of the other people, and then he'll just start, like, fighting them as well, right? It's just, like, the dynamic in that fight is so good, and it's super long in traditional kung fu fashion. The ending fight is, like, 20 minutes, which I love, because it just keeps progressing, right? And near the end of the first stage of the fight in the police department, they finish off the bow and arrow raid guy, but unfortunately in that, the journalist guy ends up dying in the process. But it's the kung fu part comes in because it was revenge, because that guy killed his wife in the opening of the movie, because they caught her, like, trying to disrupt their operation. So then he like, bites his throat out like a zombie, and it's great, right? Because he knew he was done for anyway. So he's like, I'm bringing you down with me, you son of a bitch, right? And then, he dies, and then the main mob guy kills Brian Lee, and then it's just, like, everybody's out except the mob guy and the main guy. Right? And one thing I love is the mob guy then runs to go after his children, because then his wife was pregnant. The mob guy's wife was pregnant, so he wants to take away what he could have had. He wants to take away what the main guy had, because he took it away from him, right? So then, one thing I love about this scene, he chases him down, and then he has, like, his daughter, like, he has her, and he's gonna get her, and he's, like, about to do, like, this really, like, every action movie does this. He's gonna do the villain monologue, and he's like, I was gonna be a father. I was gonna have a daughter, this and that. He's just going on. But then the main guy's like, fuck that shit. And he just tackles him out the fucking window, and they crash onto bicycles, like, from a 3-story height. It's really high up, right? And they kind of brush it off, which I think is great, by the way. I thought that's great. I really love the subversion of you thinking he's going to go on a villain monologue and the main character just being like, fuck that noise. We're fighting, And one thing I love about the final duel between the mob guy and the main guy is they fucking duel with bicycles. If you can make dueling with bicycles look cool, I think you should be, like, given an award for that, right? Like, it didn't look that goofy. Like, it was genuinely an intense fight, and they were just fucking swiping at each other with bicycles, and it looked so cool. And they clashed with the bikes like they were swords or something, and it was just so badass. I don't know. It was awesome. And then when they had gotten rid of the bikes, They were starting to fight each other with pieces of the bikes. The mob guy was trying to choke him to death with the chain, and the main guy was trying to beat him to death with a pedal, right? And I don't know, the whole ending fight was just so fucking good. And one thing I loved about the end of it was, I said this a million times, one thing I love about martial arts movies is that I love it when the hero gets his ass kicked. Right? I love it when at the end of the Kung Fu movie, he's basically at the brink of death. Right? I always love it. Because when he beats the villain, it feels earned, right? It really feels like he clawed his way up to defeat the villain, because the villain should be like the equal. It should be the hero's equal. Like, it shouldn't be easy for the hero to beat the villain. Like, if you build them up all the way and it's just like a cakewalk for the hero, that's anticlimactic, right? If it takes them like 15 minutes to finally like weaken the villain and finally like wipe that smug look on his face, like punch it right off, and then he just beats the shit out of him and he kills him, that's satisfying, right? Because you grew to hate the villain, but you also grew to hate how he was so good, right? And you're like, oh, how's the hero gonna beat him? And then he does beat him, and it's really triumphant. I don't know. I'm just saying, I like it when the hero earns their victory. Either way, I'm going off on a tangent here. I just really, really fucking enjoyed this movie. And I think you would enjoy this movie too. I think you should go out and watch it. I just think it's so fucking good. And there's even great fights and great sequences that I didn't even mention in this video, because I think you should go out and see it, like I said. And you might be asking, Ronan, what would you rate this movie? And I don't even care if you didn't ask that question, because I'm going to answer it anyway. I would rate this film an 8.5 out of 10. And, yeah, I think that's what I said. Think of some peace. So, guys, I hope you like this video. Share it with friends. Subscribe. Turn those notifications on. Comment down below on how much you liked it. But you guys know how it goes. I didn't really need to say that. What I really meant to say is, if you guys hated this video, unsubscribe, dislike it, tell me how much you hate me in the comments. And I've been on TMHD, off to break up a human trafficking ring. You know, I was watching this movie, right? And while I was watching it, I'm like, holy shit, this could have been a Temple of Kung Fu. Like, if I hadn't seen this right here in the cinema, this could have been a Temple of Kung Fu. Like, there's revenge, there's a 20-minute ending fight, the main character gets his ass beat. I mean, it's got all the hallmarks of a Temple of Kung Fu, but, I guess I can't combine the series. What is it called? The Ticket Tuesday of the Temple of Kung Fu? That doesn't really make any sense. I could do it, though. I won't. But I could. Should I...